A grieving Marine stood over his wife's coffin, his heart shattered, until the unthinkable happened. The coffin moved. What followed was a revelation so shocking. It would change his life forever. This is a story of love, loss, and a miracle no one saw coming. Before we dive into this unbelievable story, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next. The knock that shattered his world. The rain fell in heavy sheets over Camp Pendleton, drumming against the rooftops like an ominous warning. Inside the dimly lit barracks, Sergeant Jake Mercer sat on the edge of his bunk, his calloused fingers tracing the edges of a worn photograph. Emily's smile, bright, effortless, the kind that could make a hardened Marine's heart stutter, stared back at him. Only 3 more days until he'd see her again. 3 more days until he could finally hold her after 6 long months of deployment. A sharp rap at the door shattered the silence. Jake frowned. Too late for routine check-ins. Too formal for one of his squad mates. "Enter," he called, tucking the photo into his pocket. The door creaked open, revealing Captain Reynolds, his expression unreadable. Behind him, the base chaplain stood, his face solemn. A cold knot twisted in Jake's gut. No, this wasn't a social visit. "Mercer," Reynolds began, his voice low, "you need to come with us." Jake's pulse roared in his ears. "Sir," Reynolds hesitated. Just a fraction of a second, but it was enough. "There's been an accident." The drive to the hospital was a blur of rain-slicked roads and flashing streetlights. Jake's hands clenched around the steering wheel, his mind racing through every possible scenario. A fender bender. A broken bone. Emily was tough. She'd laugh it off, tease him for worrying. But then why was the chaplain here? The emergency room doors hissed open before he could reach them. A doctor in blue scrubs stepped forward, her mouth pressed into a thin line. "Sergeant Mercer?" Jake's throat tightened. "Where's my wife?" The doctor didn't answer immediately. Instead, she guided him to a private room, the kind they reserve for the worst news, the kind where hope went to die. "I'm so sorry," she said softly. "We did everything we could." The words hit like a mortar blast. Emily was gone. The funeral was a nightmare. Jake stood stiffly in his dress blues, the weight of his medals suddenly unbearable. The church was packed. Family, friends, even strangers who had known Emily through her volunteer work. Her kindness had always drawn people in. Now it felt like a cruel joke. The mahogany coffin at the front of the room gleamed under the stained glass light. Too polished, too final. Jake's fists clenched at his sides. This wasn't right. Emily was supposed to be waiting for him at home, her arms open, her laughter filling the air. Not this. Not Coldwood in silence. The pastor stepped forward, his voice a steady murmur of scripture. "The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away." Then a sound, faint, muffled, a single thump from inside the coffin. Jake's breath caught. His head snapped up. Did anyone else hear that? The room remained still, the mourners lost in their own grief. Maybe he'd imagined it. Maybe his mind was finally breaking under the weight of it all. Then another thump, louder this time. A sharp gasp rippled through the crowd. Jake didn't think. He lunged forward, his boots echoing against the hardwood as he shoved past the stunned funeral director. "Sergeant, please," the man protested, reaching for him. "It's just the settling of—" Crack! The sound of splintering wood. And then a weak, muffled cry. Not Emily's voice. A child's. The air left Jake's lungs in a rush. Someone was alive inside that coffin. The coffin secret. For a heartbeat, the entire church froze. The mourners' whispered prayers died in their throats. The pastor's Bible slipped from his fingers, hitting the floor with a sharp slap that no one seemed to hear. All eyes were locked on the mahogany coffin, and the sound coming from inside it. Jake's training kicked him before his mind could fully process what was happening. He gripped the edge of the coffin lid, his muscles straining as he shoved it sideways. The wood groaned in protest, nails screeching as they tore free. The funeral director stumbled back, his face ashen. "Sergeant, you can't." Jake ignored him. With one final heave, the lid gave way, crashing to the ground. The The scent of formaldehyde and roses flooded his senses. But beneath it, something else. The metallic tang of sweat, fear, and then he saw her. Curled in a hollow space beside Emily's shrouded body was a little girl, no older than 6. Her wrists were bound with rough rope, her mouth sealed with duct tape, her wide, terrified eyes locked onto Jake's, pleading silently. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, panic breaths. For a single, disorienting second, Jake's mind refused to accept what he was seeing. This wasn't possible. This couldn't be real. Then the girl twitched, her bound hands straining against the ropes, and reality came crashing back. Call an ambulance. Jake barked, ripping the tape from her mouth as gently as he could. The girl gasped, her dry lips parting in a wheezing cough. Around them, the church erupted into chaos. Someone screamed. A woman fainted. Cell phone snapped up, recording the nightmare unfolding at the altar. Jake barely noticed. His entire world had narrowed to the trembling child in front of him. He scooped her into his arms, her slight frame shuddering against his chest. Her skin was ice cold. "Hey, it's okay," he murmured, his voice rough. "You're safe now." The girl didn't speak. Her fingers clutched at his uniform jacket, her nails digging into the fabric like she was afraid he'd vanish if she let go. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The funeral director was shouting into his phone, his voice cracking. "We need police. No, not just EMTs, police. There's a child." Jake tuned him out. His gaze dropped to Emily's body, still and serene beneath the burial shroud. A fresh wave of grief threatened to choke him, but he forced it down. There'd be time for that later. Right now, this girl needed him. He adjusted his grip, cradling her closer. "What's your name?" The girl swallowed hard. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Lily." Jake's breath hitched. That name. Emily had always loved lilies. Their backyard was full of them. Before he could respond, Lily's fingers tightened in his jacket. Her next word sent a chill down his spine. "They put me in here with Mommy." Jake went very still. "Mommy?" Lily nodded weakly, her eyes fluttering shut. Exhaustion or shock was pulling her under. "She told me to hide. But the bad men, they found us." The sirens were right outside now. Red and blue lights pulsed through the stained glass windows, painting the church in eerie shades of violet. Jake's mind raced. Mommy. Emily had no children. They'd tried for years before accepting it wouldn't happen. So, who was this girl? Why would she? Then Lily's hand slipped from his jacket, her small body going limp in his arms. "Lily? Lily!" The paramedics burst through the doors just as her pulse fluttered beneath Jake's fingertips. Weak, but there. "Over here." Jake roared. As the EMTs rushed forward, one thought burned in Jake's mind. This was an accident, and Emily's death was no coincidence. The girl in the coffin. The ambulance ride was a blur of flashing lights and shouted medical terms Jake only half understood. Oxygen saturation. Hypothermia. Shock. He sat rigid on a narrow bench, his gaze locked on Lily's small form as the EMTs worked over her. An oxygen mask covered most of her face, her chest rising and falling in shallow, uneven breaths. One of the paramedics, a woman with dark braids and a no-nonsense expression, glanced up at Jake. "You her father?" The question hit him like a punch. "No." His voice came out rougher than he intended. "I don't know who she is." The EMT's eyebrows lifted, but she didn't press further. Smart. Jake's grip on the edge of the bench had turned his knuckles white, and the look in his eyes warned against any more questions. The hospital swarmed with activity the moment they arrived. Doctors in blue scrubs converged on the gurney, their voices overlapping as they rattled off orders. Jake followed until a nurse stopped him with a firm hand on his chest. "Sir, you'll need to wait here." He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. Lily needed help, not a Marine getting in the way. With a stiff nod, he stepped back, watching as they wheeled her through the double doors and out of sight. The waiting room was sterile and quiet, the kind of place where time crawled. Jake paced, his dress shoes clicking against the linoleum. Every few steps, he glanced at the clock. 5 minutes. 10. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Captain Reynolds. Jake declined the call. At the 15-minute mark, a detective arrived, tall, early 40s, with a tired face that said he'd seen too much. He flashed his badge. Sergeant Mercer? Detective Ruiz. Mind if I sit? Jake didn't, but he nodded anyway. Ruiz sank into one of the plastic chairs with a sigh. Held the thing back there. Jake said nothing. The detective pulled out a notepad. You really don't know the girl? No. Never seen her before today? Jake's jaw tightened. No. Ruiz studied him for a long moment, then flipped the notepad shut. Here's what we know so far. No missing child reports matching her description. No fingerprints in the system. And the funeral home insists they never opened the casket after your wife was placed inside. Jake's stomach twisted. So someone put her in there before it was sealed. Seems that way. Ruiz leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Which means whoever did this had access to the body before the funeral. Any idea why someone would do that? A cold thought slithered into Jake's mind. Because they wanted her buried alive. Before he could voice it, a doctor pushed through the doors. Sergeant Mercer? Jake was on his feet instantly. How is she? Stable. She's dehydrated and suffering from mild hypothermia. But physically, she'll recover. The doctor hesitated. She's asking for you. Ruiz stood. I'll need to question her. Not yet. The doctor's tone left no room for argument. She's traumatized. Right now, she needs familiarity. Her gaze shifted to Jake. And she seems to think you're it. Lily looked even smaller in the hospital bed, swallowed by wires and blankets. Her eyes, a startling shade of green, just like Emily's, snapped to Jake the moment he entered. He forced himself to move slowly, pulling a chair to her bedside. Hey, kid. She didn't smile, but some of the tension left her shoulders. Jake glanced at the four in her arm, the bruises on her wrists from the ropes. Rage simmered low in his gut, but he kept his voice calm. You feeling okay? Lily nodded. Then, in a voice so quiet he almost missed it, Where's Mommy? Jake's breath caught. He didn't know how to answer that. Didn't know if he could. Before he could try, Lily's small hand slipped into his. Her fingers were warm now, but they trembled. The bad men took her, she whispered. They said she was sleeping, but she wouldn't wake up. Ice flooded Jake's veins. Lily's grip tightened. You're a soldier, right? Marine, he corrected softly. Marines save people. It wasn't a question. Jake looked into those green eyes, so much like Emily's, and made a promise. Yeah, Lily, we do. And he would, no matter what it cost him. A dark conspiracy. The hospital room hummed with a steady beep of monitors, the sound grating against Jake's frayed nerves. Lily had finally drifted into an uneasy sleep, her small fingers still loosely curled around his. He hadn't moved for hours, unwilling to disturb her, and unwilling to face the storm of questions waiting for him the moment he stepped outside. Detective Ruiz had left to file his report, but not before warning Jake not to go anywhere. As if Jake would. Where the hell would he go? His wife was dead, and a child who called her mommy was clinging to him like he was the last solid thing in her world. A soft knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. A nurse peeked in, her expression apologetic. Sergeant Mercer? There's someone here to see you. Before Jake could respond, a familiar figure stepped into the room. Captain Reynolds, still in uniform, his face unreadable. Jake stiffened. Sir. Reynolds held up a hand. At ease, Sergeant. His gaze flicked to Lily, then back to Jake. I'd ask how you're holding up, but that seems like a stupid question right now. Jake didn't answer. With a sigh, Reynolds pulled up a chair. The police filled me in. That girl, Lily, she really called Emily Mom? Jake's grip on the bed rail tightened. Yeah. And you had no idea she existed? No. The word came out sharper than he intended. Emily never mentioned her. Not once. Reynolds studied him for a long moment, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded envelope. This came for you at the base. It's from Emily, postmarked the day before her accident. Jake's breath caught. He took the envelope, his fingers brushing the familiar slant of Emily's handwriting. His name, written in her looping script. For a second, he couldn't bring himself to open it. Reynolds stood. "I'll give you some privacy." "But Jake." He waited until Jake met his eyes. "Whatever's going on here, it stinks. And if you need backup, you call me." "Understood." Jake gave a tight nod. The moment the door closed behind Reynolds, he tore open the envelope. A single sheet of paper slid out. No greeting, no signature. Just 5 lines in Emily's hurried scrawl. "If you're reading this, something happened to me. Lily is mine. I couldn't tell you, not until I knew she was safe. They found us, the people from my past. The pendant has the proof. Protect her, Jake. No matter what." Jake read the words 3 times, his mind reeling. "Lily is mine." The confirmation should have brought clarity. Instead, it only deepened the mystery. And that last line, "the pendant has the proof." Emily's locket. The silver one she never took off. The one she'd worn since the day they met. Jake had assumed it was buried with her. But if it wasn't, a whimper from the bed snapped his attention back to Lily. Her face was pinched, her legs twitching beneath the blankets. Trapped in a nightmare. Jake smoothed a hand over her hair. "Hey, you're okay." Lily's eyes flew open, wild and unfocused. For a heartbeat, she didn't seem to recognize him. Then her breath hitched. "They're coming," she whispered. Jake stilled. "Who's coming, Lily?" "The bad men. The ones who hurt Mommy." Her small hand fisted in his sleeve. They said they'd put me in the dark forever next time." A chill crawled down Jake's spine. He forced his voice to stay calm. "Did these men ever say their names? Or where they took you?" Lily shook her head, her lower lip trembling. "Just, the tall one had a snake on his hand." "A snake?" She traced a wobbly line on her own wrist. "Like this, with red eyes." Jake's pulse spiked. A serpent tattoo. That wasn't much to go on, but it was something. He was about to press further when his phone buzzed. An unknown number. The text was brief. "Stop asking questions, Sergeant. You won't like the answers." Jake's grip on the phone turned deadly. He didn't bother replying. Instead, he stood, pressing a kiss to Lily's forehead. "I'll be right back, okay?" She nodded, though her eyes were still wide with fear. Out in the hall, Jake dialed Detective Ruiz. The detective picked up on the second ring. "Mercer? I was just about to call you. We pulled the funeral home security footage. You need to see this." Jake's stomach dropped. "What is it?" Ruiz's voice was grim. "Proof that your wife's accident wasn't an accident at all." 20 minutes later, Jake stood in the precinct's viewing room, his eyes locked on the grainy black and white footage playing on the screen. The timestamp showed 3 days before the funeral, the night Emily's body was delivered to the mortuary. A figure in dark scrubs moved confidently through the halls, bypassing security with ease. When they turned toward the camera, Jake's blood turned to ice. The man wasn't just wearing scrubs. He was wearing a coroner's badge. And on his wrist, clear as day, was the coiled outline of a serpent. Ruiz paused the video. "Recognize him?" Jake's voice was barely human. "No, but I'm going to find out who he is." And when he did, there wouldn't be enough left of the man to bury. The hidden clue. The precinct's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Jake stared at the frozen image on the screen, the coroner with the serpent tattoo. His mind raced, replaying every interaction Emily had ever had with medical staff, every offhand comment she'd made about her past. Nothing fit. Detective Ruiz exhaled sharply beside him. "We're running his face through the system, but if he's smart, he's not in any database." He tapped the screen. "That tattoo, though, that's a calling card. Organized crime, maybe, or a private security firm with shady connections." Jake barely registered the words. His focus zeroed in on the man's left hand, where a glint of metal caught the light. "Zoom in." Ruiz frowned but obliged. The image pixelated, then resolved into a clearer shot. A ring, thick silver, with a distinctive insignia, a serpent coiled around a medical cross. The same symbol from Emily's flash drive. Jake's pulse roared in his ears. "I need to get back to my house." Ruiz grabbed his arm as he turned. "Whoa, slow down. This is an active investigation now. You can't just..." My wife left a clue. Jake wrenched free, his voice low and lethal. And I'm done waiting for red tape to get us both killed. Emily's home office looked like a war zone. Jake stood in the doorway, his stomach churning. Drawers had been yanked out, their contents strewn across the floor. Files shredded. Even the family photos had been torn from the walls, their glass frames shattered. Whoever had done this wasn't just searching. They were sending a message. Lily's voice echoed in his mind. The bad men found us. Jake stepped over the wreckage, his boots crunching on broken picture glass. Emily's favorite mug, world's best wife in cheery script, lay in pieces near her overturned chair. He forced himself to look away. Focus. The pendant has the proof. Emily's locket. Where would she have hidden it? His gaze swept the room, lingering on the loose floorboard near her desk. The one where he'd found the flash drive. Too obvious. The intruders would have checked there first. Then it hit him. The bookshelf. Emily had always loved old novels, the kind with ornate covers and gilt-edged pages. Wuthering Heights sat slightly askew, its spine more worn than the others. Jake pulled it free, and something clinked inside. A key, small, brass, the kind used for safety deposit boxes. Taped to the inside cover was a note in Emily's handwriting. If you're reading this, trust no one, not even the police. The answers are at First National, Box 721. The code is Lily's birthday, the day we became a family. Jake's hand shook. Lily's birthday. A date he didn't know. A floorboard creaked behind him. Jake spun, reaching for the sidearm he wasn't wearing. He'd left it at the hospital. A shadow filled the hallway. Easy, Sergeant. Detective Ruiz stepped into view, hands raised. I came to back you up. Jake didn't relax. How'd you find me? Your car's GPS look. I get it. You don't trust me. Ruiz nodded at the key in Jake's hand. But whatever you just found, it's connected to my case now, too. Jake's fingers closed around the key. Every instinct screamed to walk away, but Ruiz was right. He needed help. First National Bank. Jake said finally, Safety Deposit Box 721. Ruiz's eyes narrowed. What's inside? Jake thought of the serpent tattoo, the coroner's badge, the way Emily's note had warned him not to trust anyone. Proof, he said. Enough to get us all killed. The bank's vault loomed before them, its steel door gleaming under sterile white lights. The manager, a nervous man with sweat beading on his brow, inserted his key alongside Jake's. I must remind you, without proper documentation. Open it. Jake's tone left no room for argument. The box slid free with a metallic whisper. Inside lay 3 items. A birth certificate. Lillian Carter, born 5 years ago. Mother, Emily Carter. Father, deceased. A faded photograph of a much younger Emily, standing beside a man with cold eyes and a serpent ring. Behind them, a sign read Blackwater Medical Research. A USB drive labeled in Emily's handwriting. For Jake only. Ruiz reached for it. Jake blocked him. She said no one else. The detective's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Fine, but whatever's on there, it better explain why a little girl was buried alive. Jake plugged the drive into his phone. A single video file appeared. Emily's face filled the screen, her eyes haunted. Jake, if you're watching this, I'm already gone. Her voice cracked, and Jake's knees nearly buckled. I lied to you. About everything. My name isn't Emily Carter. It's Sarah Lent. I was a researcher at Blackwater, and what we were doing. God, Jake, it was monstrous. The video cut to security footage. Rows of children in hospital beds, their limbs tethered to IVs. A man with a serpent ring injecting something into a child's arm. Lily, younger, screaming. Emily's voice returned, shaking with rage. They're using kids to test bioweapons. When I tried to expose them, they killed my husband. So I took Lily. She's not biologically mine, but I couldn't leave her there, and I ran. The screen went black. Then 2 final words. Find her. Jake's phone slipped from his fingers. Because in that last frame, reflected in the glass behind Emily, stood Captain Reynolds, smiling, wearing a serpent ring. The underground network. Jake's hands clenched into fists so tight his nails bit into his palms. The video's final frame burned behind his eyes. Captain Reynolds, standing in the shadows of Emily's past, wearing the serpent ring of the enemy. Detective Ruiz picked up a fallen phone, his face grim as he rewatched the last seconds. This can't be a coincidence. Your CO is involved. Jake didn't trust himself to speak. He'd served under Reynolds for 8 years. Shared beers with the man. Trusted him with his life. And all this time, how deep does this go? Ruiz pocketed the USB drive. We need to move. If Reynolds is dirty, he already knows you're digging. A cold realization settled over Jake. He's the one who gave me Emily's letter. He wanted me to find this. Or he's testing you. Ruiz checked his sidearm. Either way, we can't go back to the precinct. Not until we know who else is involved. Jake grabbed a birth certificate and photo from the safety deposit box. Lily's wide green eyes stared up from the image. Not just scared, but recognizing the man with the serpent ring. They're using kids to test bioweapons. The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. Lily wasn't just a witness. She was one of their test subjects. And now she lay defenseless in a hospital bed. Jake was already moving. We need to get to Lily. Now! The hospital parking lot was eerily quiet, the streetlights casting long shadows across the asphalt. Jake kept to the darkness. Ruiz at his flank, both men hyper-aware of every flicker of movement. Ruiz held up a hand as they neared the entrance. Let me check the lobby first. If Reynolds has people here, they'll be looking for you. Jake nodded, but the second Ruiz disappeared inside, he circled toward the service elevators. He wasn't waiting for permission, not when Lily's life hung in the balance. The 5th floor hallway was deserted, the nurse's station unmanned. Too quiet. Jake's pulse hammered as he approached Lily's room, then froze. The door stood ajar. Inside, the bed was empty, for line dangling like a severed umbilical cord. No, Jake's vision tunneled. He lunged for the bathroom. Empty. The closet, nothing. Then a whimper. From under the bed, he dropped to his knees, and there she was, Lily, curled into a trembling ball, her small hands pressed over her mouth. Jake, she sobbed, launching herself into his arms. They came back. He held her tight, scanning the room for threats. Who, Lily? Who was here? She buried her face in his neck. The snake man. He had a needle like before. Ice flooded Jake's veins. They'd come to silence her permanently. Boots pounded down the hall. Jake spun, shielding Lily with his body as the door burst open. Ruiz skidded to a stop, breathless. We've got company. Black SUVs just rolled up, no plates. We need to move. Jake didn't hesitate. He wrapped Lily in a blanket and lifted her. Hold on tight, kid. She clung to him like a lifeline as they slipped into the stairwell. The service exit dumped them into an alley reeking of garbage and stale urine. Ruiz led the way. His phone pressed his ear. Garza? Yeah, it's me. I need an off-the-books favor. A pause. No, nobody can know. Not even the captain. Jake adjusted his grip on Lily. Her breathing was too fast, too shallow against his neck. Shock setting in. Ruiz hung up. My cousin's a paramedic. He'll meet us at the old textile mill with supplies and a clean ride. Jake nodded his thanks, but his focus was on Lily. Hey, look at me. Her wide, terrified eyes met his. You remember what Marines do? She gave a tiny nod. Good. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. Then you know I'm not letting anything happen to you. The first gunshot shattered a window above them. Crack. Jake ducked, shielding Lily as glass rained down. Ruiz cursed, drawing his weapon. They found us. More shots. Closer now. Jake ran. Lily's arms tightened around his neck as they rounded a corner, straight into a dead end. The SUV screeched to a halt behind them, doors flying open. Jake turned, putting his body between Lily and the armed figures emerging from the vehicles. Then a miracle. An ambulance roared into the alley, lights off but siren wailing. It skidded to a stop inches from the SUVs, buying them precious seconds. Get in. Ruiz's cousin yelled from the driver's seat. Jake didn't need telling twice. As the ambulance peeled away, one of the gunmen stepped into the open. Captain Reynolds, his face twisted in fury, serpent ring glinting under the streetlights. Lily let out a small, broken cry. Jake held her closer, his voice a vow. It's not over, because now he had proof, and a list of names to destroy. The sister's secret. The ambulance sped through the darkened streets, taking sharp turns to lose any pursuers. Lily clung to Jake, her small body trembling beneath the scratchy hospital blanket. The paramedic, Ruiz's cousin, Mateo, kept glancing in the rearview mirror, his knuckles white on the wheel. Where to? Mateo asked, voice tight. Ruiz exhaled sharply. Somewhere they won't think to look. Jake's mind raced. They couldn't go to a safe house. Reynolds would have access to all police and military resources. A hotel was too risky. Then it hit him. Emily's sister, Jake said. Ruiz frowned. I thought Emily didn't have family. That's what she wanted people to think. Jake tightened his hold on Lily. But there's someone, a sister. She reached out after the funeral. Lily stirred at the mention of family. Aunt Rachel? Jake's breath caught. You know her? Lily nodded against his chest. Mommy said she was safe. Ruiz pulled out his phone. Give me an address. Rachel Carter lived in a weather but well-kept bungalow on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by towering pines that offered both privacy and cover. The moment Jake stepped onto the creaky porch with Lily in his arms, the front door flew open. A woman who looked eerily like Emily, same green eyes, same stubborn set to her jaw, stood frozen in the doorway. Her gaze darted from Jake to Lily, then back. Oh my God! Rachel's voice cracked. You found her. She reached for Lily, but the girl shrank back, pressing her face into Jake's neck. Jake stepped forward. We need to talk. Now! Inside, the house smelled like lemon cleaner and old books. Rachel led them to a kitchen where a pot of coffee sat half empty, the mug beside it bearing the same lipstick shade Emily used to wear. Jake set Lily down gently. Can you show her the photo? Ruiz pulled the Blackwater research picture from his pocket. Rachel took one look and went pale. So it's true, she whispered. Jake's pulse spiked. What's true? Rachel sank into a chair. Emily wasn't just running from something. She was running to something. A cure. Lily, who had been quietly tracing the grain of the wooden table, went still. Rachel reached for her hand. Do you remember the medicine, sweetheart? The one that made you feel better? Lily's nod was barely perceptible. Jake leaned in. What medicine? Rachel's eyes glistened. Lily was patient zero in Blackwater's trials. They infected her with engineered virus, then used her DNA to create an antidote. But the side effects... She swallowed hard. Emily discovered the cure was killing half the test subjects. When she tried to blow the whistle, they murdered her husband, Lily's real father. Ruiz cursed under his breath. Jake's mind reeled. So Emily took Lily and ran, and hid her in plain sight. Rachel wiped her eyes. But the only way to truly protect her was to destroy the research. That's what Emily was doing before. Her voice broke. Before they killed her. Jake finished grimly. A sudden thud from the living room made them all jump. Lily's chair was empty. Jake was on his feet in an instant, following the sound of the next room. There, Lily stood before an old piano, her small hand resting on the keys where she'd struck a single, discordant note. On the piano's ledge sat a framed photo of Emily, Rachel, and a dark-haired man Jake didn't recognize. All smiling. Lily pointed at the man. Daddy. Rachel appeared in the doorway, her breath hitching. Yes, sweetheart, that's your father. Jake studied the photo. The man had his arm around Emily, but his other hand rested on Rachel's shoulder. The intimacy was unmistakable. A sickening realization dawned. Rachel met his gaze, her voice barely above a whisper. Emily and I, we both loved him. And when Blackwater took him, we made a promise. Protect Lily at all costs. Lily pressed her fingers to the glass over her father's face. He's gone like Mommy now. Jake knelt beside her. But I'm here. And he would finish what Emily started. Ruiz appeared in the doorway, his phone in hand. "We've got a problem. Reynolds just issued a statewide bolo for all of us, including Lily. Claims she's an endangered runaway." Rachel moved to the window, peering through the blinds. "Then we're out of time." Jake's hand found Lily's. "Where's the research now?" Rachel hesitated. "There's a backup. Emily hit it before." Headlights swept across the living room wall. Black SUVs. 2 of them. Rachel's face went slack with terror. "They found us." Glass shattered as the first bullet tore through the window. The showdown. The first gunshot sent them all diving for cover. Jake yanked Lily to the floor as another bullet punched through the wall, sending plaster dust raining down. Ruiz already had his weapon drawn, crouched low near the shattered window. "Back door now." Rachel grabbed Lily's hand, pulling her toward the kitchen. Jake followed, his body shielding them both as more gunfire erupted outside. The Blackwater team wasn't just surveilling. They were eliminating. The kitchen's back door led to a narrow porch and a steep descent into the woods. The moonless night provided cover, but the crunch of boots on gravel told Jake their pursuers were fanning out. Lily stumbled on the uneven ground. Jake scooped her up without breaking stride. "Rachel, where's the backup research?" Panting, Rachel veered left toward an old tool shed half buried in ivy. "Here, Emily's last message said she hit it." A figure materialized from the shadows, blocking the shed door. Captain Reynolds. His service pistol gleamed in the faint starlight, aimed squarely at Rachel's chest. "Should have stayed gone, Sarah." Jake's blood turned to ice. "Sarah, Emily's real name." Reynolds' smile was a predator's. "I knew you'd lead me to the research eventually. 10 years of work, and your sister nearly ruined everything." Rachel stepped forward, putting herself between Reynolds and Lily. "You murdered children. Collateral damage." Reynolds adjusted his grip, the serpent ring glinting. "The vaccine we developed from her," he jerked the gun toward Lily, "will save millions once we perfect it." Jake shifted Lily behind him, his voice deadly calm. "You'll never get that chance." Reynolds laughed. "You really think you can stop Blackwater? The program's embedded in every branch of—" A gunshot cracked through the night. Reynolds staggered, his shoulder blooming crimson. He whirled, just as Ruiz emerged from the trees, his service weapon smoking. "Sorry I'm late," Ruiz panted. "Had to lose company." Reynolds snarled and fired blindly. The shot went wide, splintering wood above Rachel's head. Jake didn't hesitate. He shoved Lily into Rachel's arms. "Run!" As they disappeared into the woods, Jake charged. He tackled Reynolds mid-reload, both men crashing into the tool shed's rotting walls. The pistol skittered away. Reynolds kneed Jake in the ribs, once, twice, but Jake barely felt it through the adrenaline. His fist connected with Reynolds' jaw. Bone crunched. "You killed her," Jake growled, hitting him again. "You put a child in a coffin." Reynolds spat blood, his grin feral. "And you'll join them." His hand found a rusted hatchet on the workbench. Jake barely dodged the first swing. The second grazed his temple, sending hot blood trickling down his cheek. Ruiz was suddenly there, gripping Reynolds' wrist. The 2 men struggled, until a sickening crack echoed through the shed. Reynolds screamed as his arm bent the wrong way. Ruiz kicked him onto his back, pressing a knee to his throat. "Where's the main research facility?" Reynolds wheezed out a laugh. "You'll never—" Jake picked up the hatchet. Reynolds' eyes tracked the blade. His bravado flickered. "Last chance," Jake said. The coordinates Reynolds gave led to an abandoned water treatment plant 30 miles north. By the time backup arrived, real backup, detectives Ruiz trusted, Reynolds was zip-tied in the shed, babbling about immunity deals. Jake found Rachel and Lily huddled in a hollowed-out tree trunk a quarter-mile into the woods. Lily launched into his arms the moment she saw him, her small fingers probing the cut on his temple. "You're bleeding." Jake pressed his forehead to hers. "I'm okay." Rachel's hands shook as she passed him a flash drive from inside her boot. The research, everything Emily stole from Blackwater, patient records, formulas, names. Ruiz appeared, his face grim in the glow of his phone. We've got SWAT en route to the facility. But Jake, he hesitated. This goes higher than Reynolds. There'll be fallout. Jake tucked the drive into his pocket, his other arm still wrapped around Lily. Let it fall. Dawn was breaking when the first news alerts hit. Breaking. FBI raids Blackwater Medical Research Facility. Whistleblower documents reveal illegal human trials. Jake watched from the safe house window as the headlines rolled in. Lily slept curled in his lap, exhausted. Rachel handed him a coffee. What now? Jake studied Lily's face. The freckles across her nose, the way her eyelashes fluttered in sleep. So much like Emily. We start over, he said softly. And for the first time since the coffin shook, he felt the faintest spark of hope. The rescue, the safe house, was a nondescript cabin deep in the mountains, far from prying eyes. Jake sat at the wooden table, watching the live news feed on Ruiz's laptop. The FBI raid on Blackwater's facility dominated every channel. Grainy footage of agents leading scientists in handcuffs, hazmat teams hauling out crates of evidence. But one face was conspicuously absent from the arrests. Van Horn, Ruiz muttered, reading Jake's thoughts. CEO of Blackwater. They can't find him. Rachel paced by the fireplace, arms crossed. He'll run, cut his losses. Jake's gaze drifted to Lily, asleep on the couch, her chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. The doctor said she was clear of the engineered virus, but the trauma would take longer to heal. Ruiz's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then stiffened. SWAT just hit a secondary location, underground lab beneath the main facility. His voice dropped. They found kids, Jake. Dozens of them. Rachel made a choke sound. Jake's hands curled into fists. The news anchor's voice crackled through the laptop speakers. Authorities confirm at least 27 children recovered, all showing signs of prolonged medical experimentation. Lily stirred, her eyelids fluttering open. She took in the tense room, then sat up abruptly. They're still there. Jake was at her side in an instant. Who is, sweetheart? The other kids, in the dark place. Her small fingers gripped his. We have to help them. Ruiz exchanged a look with Jake. If Van Horn's still out there, he might try to eliminate witnesses. Jake stood, his decision made. Then we get to them first. The abandoned water treatment plant loomed against the night sky, its broken windows like empty eye sockets. According to Reynolds' intel, the real lab was underground, accessible through a hidden elevator in the main pump room. Jake adjusted his earpiece as Ruiz's voice crackled through. SWAT's clearing the perimeter. No sign of Van Horn yet. Beside him, Lily squeezed his hand. She'd insisted on coming, knew the facility's layout better than any blueprint. Rachel waited in the car half a mile back, ready to evacuate the children when they emerged. Jake crouched to Lily's level. Remember the plan. You show us the way, then wait with Rachel. No arguments. She nodded solemnly. The pump room door groaned as Jake forced it open. Inside, the air reeked of chlorine and something fouler, decay. Lily led them past rusted machinery to a seemingly blank wall. Here, she whispered, pressing a nearly invisible panel. A section of the wall slid back, revealing a keypad. Lily input a code, her own birth date. Jake realized with a pang, and the floor shuddered as an elevator descended. The doors opened on Nightmare. A sterile white hallway stretched before them, lined with glass-walled cells. Inside each, children huddled on cots, some hooked IVs, others bearing fresh bruises. All eerily silent. A boy no older than 8 looked up as they entered. His hollow eyes widened. Lily? She broke from Jake's grip, running to the cell. Tommy, I came back, just like I promised. Ruiz was already working the electronic locks. Jesus Christ. This is a goddamn prison. Jake moved cell to cell, freeing the children. Most were too weak to stand. He carried them to the elevator in shifts. Then the lights flickered. A new voice crackled through Jake's earpiece. Rachel frantic. Someone's here. Black SUVs just pulled in. Gunfire erupted upstairs. Ruiz shoved a key card into Jake's hand. Take the kids out the service tunnel. I'll hold them off. Jake hesitated only a second before nodding. Don't be a hero. Ruiz grinned, cocking his sidearm. Too late. The service tunnel was a claustrophobic maze of pipes and flickering bulbs. Jake led the procession, Lily at his side, the older children helping the younger ones. The sounds of battle faded behind them. Then Lily froze. Wait! She pointed to an unmarked door. That's his office, where he keeps the bad medicine. Jake's pulse spiked. If Van Horn was here. He handed the key card to the oldest boy. Follow the tunnel to the end. Rachel's waiting with a bus. Lily clung to him. You have to stop him, Jake, or he'll make more sick. The office was empty, but the computer screen still glowed. Jake pulled the flash drive from his pocket, inserting it into the terminal. Files began uploading instantly. Emily's evidence, spreading through Blackwater's servers like a virus. A noise behind him. Jake turned just as the bullet grazed his ribs. Van Horn stood in the doorway, his custom-tailored suit at odds with the madness in his eyes. The pistol in his hand smoked. You think this ends with me? The research exists. It will be used. Jake lunged. They crashed through a glass cabinet, pain lancing through Jake's side. Van Horn was stronger than he looked, his fingers finding Jake's wound. Digging in, a metallic clang echoed through the room. Van Horn crumpled. Lily stood over him, a fire extinguisher in her small hands. Jake gasped a laugh, pulling her close. Good swing, kid. Outside, sirens wailed. It was over. Sunrise painted the sky in hues of gold and pink as the last ambulance pulled away. The children were safe, headed to proper hospitals, real homes. Ruiz emerged from the facility, his arm in a sling, but grinning. Van Horn's in custody. And that flash drive went viral. Every major news outlet has it. Rachel hugged Lily tight. Your mom would be so proud. Jake looked at the faces around him, the family he'd found in the wreckage. And for the first time in years, he breathed easy, a new beginning. The autumn leaves crunched underfoot as Jake walked hand in hand with Lily through the small cemetery. 6 months had passed since the Blackwater expose made global headlines, since Van Horn's arrest and the dismantling of the shadowy network that had stolen so many lives. Emily's headstone stood beneath an old oak tree, its simple inscription bathed in golden sunlight. Emily Carter, beloved wife, hero. Lily placed a bouquet of lilies, her namesake, on the grave. I miss her, she whispered. Jake squeezed her small hand. Me too, kid. But today wasn't just about mourning. It was about honoring Emily's last wish, to give Lily the life she deserved. From his pocket, Jake pulled a folded document, its official seal gleaming. The adoption papers had been finalized that morning. You sure about this? He asked, kneeling to meet Lily's eyes. I know I'm not your dad. I can't replace him or Emily. Lily threw her arms around his neck. You're my Jake, she said fiercely. That's better. A breeze rustled the leaves, carrying a faint scent of lilies. Jake could have sworn it felt like approval. The farmhouse was Rachel's idea, a sprawling property with a wraparound porch and enough land for Lily to run free. No more hiding. No more fear. Ruiz's police cruiser kicked up dust as he pulled into the driveway, a cardboard box tucked under his arm. Housewarming gift, he said, handing it to Lily. She tore it open to reveal a wriggling golden retriever puppy. His name, Sergeant, Ruiz said with a wink. Figured you two could train each other. Lily's laughter was the best sound Jake had heard in years. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and violet, Jake stood on the porch watching Lily and Sergeant chase fireflies through the tall grass. Rachel joined him, passing him a beer. She's happy, Rachel observed. Jake took a slow sip. She's safe. That's what matters. Rachel studied him. And you? He didn't answer right away. The nightmares still came sometimes, the coffin, the gunshots, the look in Emily's eyes on that final video. But then he'd hear Lily's laughter or feel the dog's wet nose nudge his hand, and the shadows would retreat. I'm getting there, he said finally. Later, as he tucked Lily into bed, she pointed to the framed photo on her nightstand, a snapshot of Emily laughing in the sunlight. Do you think she sees us? Jake smoothed her hair. Every day. Lily yawned, her eyes drifting shut. Good. Then she knows we kept our promise. Downstairs, the TV played the evening news. A clip of Van Horn being sentenced to life in prison. His empire in ruins. Jake switched it off. Some stories were better left in the past. He stepped outside onto the porch, breathing in the crisp night air. The stars were brighter here, away from the city lights. Somewhere out there, Emily was watching, and for the first time since her death, Jake could honestly say, "We're okay." This story proves that even in our darkest moments, hope finds a way. If this journey moved you, hit that like button, subscribe for more inspiring tales of courage, and share this with someone who needs a reminder. Light always follows the dark.